but I don't. So
That's
oh well.
okay. I'm just gonna full screen whatever anyway. Anyway, sorry, I took it off mute and we're just chatting over here. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. Unless you've been here all day, in which case, thanks for sticking around. If you're just joining us, my name is Lana Wyszynski. I'm senior animator at Riot Games and the MC for today. I'm joined by Skylar Sura, who's been reach for the Skylar all day in chat, helping out, answering lots of questions, and helping moderate. But for this session, more importantly, we're here with Sean Coleman of Legends of Runeterra, one of the incredible animators doing some sick leveling up animations. And we're here to figure out how they level up and how you can level up your skills. I don't know why I'm doing such a big intro. Sean.
I love it. It's because I hyped it up earlier.
I know. I got the energy. Take it away.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Lana. I messed up and didn't put an overlay of my face, so you guys will just all have to hear my disembodied voice through this whole thing. Let's talk about some level ups in Legends of Runeterra. I thought it'd be cool to run through three of our newest ones that we released in the set that just dropped, the Targon set. So I thought it'd be fun to open those Maya files up and kind of look around and see what it looks like under the hood. And then maybe we'll look at a pet. I don't know. Maybe. Cool. So first, let me pull up something. Yeah. Okay. So I thought it would be cool to edit a little something together that kind of encapsulates what our process is for building the level ups, which I'll talk about. Like, we have all sorts of technical limitations and physical limitations and stuff. But I thought it'd be cool to just see sort of like how it goes from an idea to a finished product in a quick little video, and I have one for each one of these. So let me do that. Okay, awesome. So I'll just play this and then we'll talk about it. And feel free to ask questions along the whole way. And so I'm sort of just going to talk over while these things play. So the first pass we do is just an animatic pass. It's a 2D pass. We have really awesome concept artists and storyboard artists who can also storyboard and edit things together into what's called an animatic. So that's it playing. I'm probably off time with you guys, but it's this 2D black and white board. So this one was done by, I always mess his last name up, so I wrote it down. So I was like, I don't want to mispronounce everybody's last names. I literally wrote everybody's names with like a pronunciation.
I'm big. I'm into that.
Yeah, I'm always mortified of saying it wrong. Rembert Montalde. So this is his animatic. So he kind of came up with the idea. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had Tarek? First, we sweep up from the board through some rocks and we see Mount Targon, and then we zoom in super fast, rack focus in, and now we're on the edge of the mountain and there's all these gems and Targon's there, and Tarek's there looking all cool, and he like ignites the gems and blasts the power up to the heavens, and then we're back at the board. So this one was pretty fun because this batch of set 3, and you'll see this as I go through the other 2, we started to do a little bit more like the full character. We wanted to start showing, now that we've shipped and our art team's gotten a little better and we got our feet under us as far as like we're not trying to do set 1 and set 2 at the same time. We had a little more time, so we thought we'd challenge ourselves and start kind of showing the whole character a little more, because that's just cooler. So we zoom in, we see Tarek, and he lights up all that. Cool. So then the next pass we'll do is an animator will take that idea and build it out in 3D. And what you're trying to solve there is like, how big are things? Where are they in 3D space? How fast does this happen? All that good stuff. The nice thing is, remember, storyboards answer some of those questions for you. Like, this is how long it takes, because he's a really good storyboard artist. So makes it really easy when the storyboard artist does a good job. So we'll play this. So this pass, the previz pass, it's not about pretty art. It's not about final assets. You can see my animation is two poses, and it's really not great poses. You can see the edges of cards here, where I'm just grabbing whatever I can find, whatever paintings are lying around. But it's about saying, this is what it'll look like. This is where things will be. This is roughly how long it would take. There's some. Here's some effects. Insert cool VFX later. Um, you know. So we'll do a pass like that. Everybody will agree on that, and then we'll move into the actual animation pass. So this is with all the final assets, and now we have all these beautiful paintings and these 3D models. And
so looking at this animation pass, just to clarify what exactly is going on, because I think a lot of people would see this and be like, oh, the animation pass, you're animating the character. So you made him do that thing. Like, I think you should go a little bit more into what exactly you're animating in this animation pass.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. Let's go over to Maya.
Nice.
So here's where... What's that?
I said she's a plant.
She's a plant. Let me just kill this window. Okay. So let's look at this in Maya, because that's a great question. Do I want to open? Well, we'll start. So I'm going to start in the previz file. Actually, yeah, we'll start in the previz file. So this is actually what our scene looks like under the hood. So this is going to shatter the illusion of the game for everybody. So you're welcome.
Look away now if you don't want your world broken.
So this is what you are looking at when you are playing, but this is actually what you're seeing. It's all smoke and mirrors. So for something like this, what I'll do once I get the 2D storyboards is I'll start placing a bunch of assets, putting things where I think they roughly could go that makes sense in 3D space. And I'll show you, you can kind of see the camera. Here's the camera, and it moves up from the board, and it's looking through these rocks, and then it goes forward. And so to answer Lana's question, what am I animating? Obviously camera stuff, but we're also doing a whole bunch of tricks, animating backgrounds and little elements and blurring things. And then of course I'll open the other animation file where we'll go over the animation. And even right here, I'm animating some temporary effects. The reason we do a lot of this stuff is because Legends of Runeterra is on mobile. We want to run on we want to be able to offer the game on the lowest perf device that we can. So even if you have an old phone or something, you could still play the game, which means we have to keep these under a certain memory limit. So there's a lot of restrictions. And some of them are things like clipping planes. You see if this is set up. So you'll see as I move close to something, it just disappears. And if I move too far away from something, it just disappears. We do that on purpose because the more you draw, the deeper you draw, the more memory something takes up. So we have pretty strict clipping planes. And when we built this, actually, we had even stricter. What you're seeing, I could only go back about that far before it would start clipping backgrounds. So we have to cram everything in to a very small space into right here. So we don't have a lot of space to do like a full 3D mountain and just have this infinite sweeping landscape that we zoom through. And we also, that would take up so much memory because these are all real-time assets. So we do all these kinds of little tricks. Let's see where we can find these kinds of things. We also don't do post effects, which is things like blur, motion blur, color correction after the fact, all sorts of cool stuff that you can do when you're on like a high-end console game. So because we can't do that, we look for little opportunities to cheat. So there's a couple cheats in here. One is, you'll see it like the back, it kind of feels like I'm doing a FOV, a field of view shift, right? Where we're changing the FOV because the mountain's like going away from us. That's all just hand animated to look like a camera trick. You can just see it here. We're not actually changing anything in the camera. It's FOV. And then the other thing that was cool is we really wanted this idea of like this super hard zoom in real fast into the mountain, but we can't do motion blur because that's really expensive. So we came up with this idea of, well, what if we just had two sets of textures on these? We just had one texture. Let me see if I can if this is set up properly. Yeah. So we just have a texture of a mountain, and then I just set up a little blend. I just went in Photoshop and blurred the mountain, and that's all that's happening. As the camera moves forward, I'm just moving between these two textures.
My world is crumbling.
It's crumbling. Nothing is real.
We have a question from Fancy Fox in the chat. How difficult do you find the implementation for all of this? The planes and the camera along with the character, and then specifically into the engine?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's well, so what we do is we build all of this stuff, this previz file. And we did start by saying, we think we need to put all this in engine. So we built a whole system. Seth Hall, who's a VFX artist, but also like just a genius tech artist, wrote a tool, and it was pretty amazing, where we could just take all of my little geometry planes that I'm just creating geometry and sticking it and putting textures on it. None of this is rigged. There's no bones, nothing. Because I want to work as fast as I can when it comes to previs, because it's all about signing off on the idea. But he wrote a tool that looks, when I press a button, looks through the whole scene, creates joints where everything is, creates a rig out of that, and then puts it back in the scene. It's wild. So it's something. I've never even heard of it. It's like reverse rigging. It's insanity. Go ahead.
So there's another question actually sort of tied to that. But if you're not done with this, I'll wait till you're done.
Well, the short answer is we thought we had to do all that work. We did all that work, and we realized after doing it that nobody really benefited from it. So we don't do that anymore. We build these scenes. Everybody kind of signs off on it, and then what comes out of it is like an asset list. We go, okay, Sean built some terrible 3D rocks here. We need somebody to make better 3D rocks. Okay, we'll make 3D rocks. And then we'll swap all this stuff out later. And that stuff is done in a way that is proper and is production ready. So we have tools that allow us to basically press export and export that stuff very easily. So it's not that hard if we do it the proper way.
So the other question was from the Natural Ones, and they asked, I was wondering what your relationship is like with your tech artist. I'm studying rigging and VFX at Cogswell, and I want to get your experience with them.
Oh, awesome. So I've been lucky we have on our team, we have 3 tech artists, and we're supported by a few other tech artists from different teams and stuff. Riots helps each other out in a lot of ways. So, but we have 3 full-time tech artists. I was lucky enough to have hired one of them because I worked with him at Insomniac, Eric Idukas. So we've known each other for like 12 years. So we get along very well. But even the other 2 guys who I did not know prior to this, we get along very well. And the truth is, I highly recommend, as an animator, it's probably the greatest relationship you can cultivate is the relationship with your tech artists. Mm-hmm. Second only maybe to the engineer that you're working with, but they are the ones who can go into the rig file and add all the things that you don't know how to add and fix the things that you didn't know you broke and all of that. And they're the ones that's kind of, to their credit, you kind of got to convince them sometimes, like, hey, it would be great if I had 20 controls instead of 5. And their question's going to be like, why? Because I have a million other things I need to do. So if you take the time to cultivate a really healthy relationship, it's more likely that they're like, oh, got it, no problem. So I'm lucky. My relationship's very good, and I highly recommend it's worth spending the time to get to know your tech artists and become their friends. That sounds very Machiavellian, but yeah.
I was gonna surface another question that was once again kind of related to this topic, but it's like so you have like all these moving pieces. There's like 30 things in this scene. Like how much this was asked by VSA Art, like how much iteration do you have? I mean, it seems like once you get this ball rolling, it's pretty difficult to like make
Right.
significant changes to it, right?
That's a good question. Yeah. And that's so yes, and that's precisely what the previs stage is for. Um, so we have the animatic stage, and that's really fast and easy. Drawings are the cheapest thing in 3D production. So that's like what your animatic phase is all about is your art director and your storyboard artist, and they're moving quick. Hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? Change this, change that, and that's the fastest iteration you can get because it's just a new drawing. Um, then you move into previs where it each step of the pipeline, yep, it gets harder to change things. The idea about previs is that that process should still be malleable. Like as the person doing the previs, it's my job to still be able to pivot as quickly as possible. If we put this stuff in and the director says, you know, it worked in the animatic, but now that I see it in 3D, I just wish that camera was faster or different or whatever. We have to be able to make those changes, which is why you'll see as we go through different previs scenes, we keep them very lightweight. There's almost never a rig in there. It's usually just geometry. So you know you're moving as fast as you can. I'll show you Nocturne next to show you what I mean because it's pretty funny what I did there to move quickly. And if you go look up, like I really recommend if previs is at all interesting to you in any way, go look up the previs that the third floor does. There's a couple of wonderful places, but they are top notch. They do a lot of the Marvel movies, and I mean their stuff almost looks like a finished film. It's so good. So this is the final scene for Tarek. You can see all this yellow stuff. These are the controls where we thought we had to rig all this. You'll see in later scenes that we didn't do any of that. But now we've got a 3D cave, not a little flat image, and so these are like final paintings that Rembert did, who also did the storyboards, because he's very talented. So this is starting to look, and then this is a good example where these are like, instead of my crummy little rocks, these are like real rocks. We still did a little fake 3D, you know, it's just a plane that's bent a little, but you can see the paintings are really nice because Rembert did, he basically looked at the previs and said, oh, you want some rocks here? Got it. Let me paint you better ones. So this is kind of this is how it all comes together in a final scene.
Awesome. And that the actual character is a 3D model. I saw somebody ask something.
Correct.
Yeah, so he's not a plane in the middle.
No, he is a full 3D object. Let me see if I can turn off the scene's kind of been, at this point, the scene's been, had a lot of people's hands in it, so I'm not sure. There we go. That's another thing is, as you are learning how to do this work, be clean in your scenes because other people will open them and they will need to do work. So you can see here in my outliner, you know, this is all rig stuff. This is rig stuff. Everything's really clean. Everything has a top level node. There's not 400,000 things just sitting here because other people need to go in these and do their work. But yep, this is a 3D character. So this was, I think I did this, but this was probably like a 1-day animation task because it was such a simple rig. And this is actually the League rig. We didn't make any edits to I mean, we had to convert it to our rigging setup, but we didn't actually re-rig or remodel or anything. Cool.
Awesome. Collaboration.
That's right. All right, let's move on to Nocturne because it's relevant to this discussion about how quickly we move. All right. So I'll play this. So here's the animatic. We actually didn't make an animatic. We just had storyboards for this, but I cut them together so it kind of looks like an animatic. Oh, actually, I apologize. This was an animatic. Somebody did make this. Never mind. I didn't make that. So yeah. So
I was like,
I
that's
just
really
take.
robust cutting.
Yeah, I was
What
like,
are these
wow, no,
storyboards? Dang.
I was like, did I do all those blends and everything? No, I didn't do that. I think I did. I did that for another one. So yep, simple animatic. And this is a good example of why previs is important because we did this animatic, and for what it's worth, we don't normally do full color animatics. We actually are trying to. We're moving away from that because we want animatics to be fast and quick and kind of almost disposable. Like if a drawing isn't working, throw it out. So we don't work in this full color stuff anymore. Um, but this is a good example where we did the animatic and all the information's there, but it's kind of hard to parse it. Like okay, there's these evil the evil faces come out. We're at a campsite, which is what's in the card art. Um, we kind of look one way, but because we didn't do this in grayscale, we did this in full color. It's just hard to see what's going on a little bit. And then from somewhere, Nocturne comes, unknown where, right? I don't really know. It's hard to tell. So this is an example of why, like, the animatic kind of sold the idea, but there's still a little bit of like choreography that needs to happen. Um, and so instead of just going right into animation, let's do a previs scene. So let's take a look at that, and y'all are gonna think this is pretty funny because I got paid to do this, and Atlanta and Skylar know what I'm about to show. So this is what this went through multiple iterations, but this is what ended up getting approved, and then we went on to build it. So this was my previs, and I'll step through it. So again, this was what we did here is we built a set. So I had this rig. These little guys. Oh no, they're not rigged. We had the model. So this is just animating on the geometry. Again, this is so I can just move quick. It's just one thing. Let's animate it and let's move on. Here's a square of black behind them. Again, I'm like, I know a VFX artist will do something cool here. There's no reason for me to spend days like painting VFX.
Chat says box turn.
Box turn. I love it. And then we didn't have our Nocturne model set up yet, so I was like, well, yeah, a cube will do. So I just did a cube, and this is a quick set that I modeled, and I think I grabbed some. We had some. I think that might be a background of a card. I can't remember which one. And that was it. And so I just modeled this setup real quick. Just roughly, we wanted Nocturne to be kind of. Did he come from behind that pole? Did he go? Where did he go? Did he go behind that thing? So I've just stuck stuff where I thought it should be. These are trees. They're just cards, But it's enough. I know that better people than me will come back and like make this stuff really pretty. And I don't know. And even here, I kind of wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know. Nocturne comes from the wall somewhere. I don't know. So even here, I'm not doing a great. That I should have done better. To like really spend the time to be like, well, where is he coming from?
OG Mixer says he's behind the box.
He's a box behind the box. But and we'll do things like this, like putting a grid on the ground, little tricks. I mean, they're not tricks, but it's just little things like that. So you're thinking about like how much space are they actually crawling? Because if this is just grayscale, it's hard to tell. So it's just thinking about little things like that. Like how fast is he moving? It's hard to tell unless I can see it against like a grid. But so we did this, and again, this was like version 3 or 4. Me and the art director went back and forth to make sure it was doing everything it needed to do. And then once we said, yep, this is good to go, what we can do is I can send this piece of geometry, right? I can send this set to our modeler. So the modeler says, okay, I get where everything has to go. I'll just make it really pretty. And the effects artist can see that there's a slash of some sort right here. Okay. And then I know, because I was also the animator, I know that I have to animate something right here. So let's hop over to the animation scene.
So quick, this is totally unrelated.
Yeah.
Can you hear my throat gurgling like crazy?
No, but I can see you like I see all these struggles happening over on I just but no, I can't hear
I
anything.
can see that the mic is picking it up, and I keep like muting and unmuting myself. I'm drinking a soda water, and it's like, and I was like, so sorry if people are just hearing throat noises. I'm drinking soda water. That's all.
I'm not seeing anything, but I definitely see some. I see some like a lot of hands at the throat. I was like, is she dying?
Are you choking, Lana? Are you choking?
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Sorry anybody who's listening to my throat. Continue. Sorry.
Sean, there is a couple quick like kind of related questions that maybe we'll answer between these things, which was one is do you have to do anything different for these scenes for the PC versus mobile, or do you try to keep them the same? And the second sort of related one is are there like significant, like poly count and vert budgets and stuff you have to fit in? So basically around performance and trying to get it to work on both mobile and PC.
Yes. So yes to both of those. The vert count and all that. Yes, we have extreme limitations. I think it's like less than 10,000 on screen at any given frame.
Oh wow, that's
so hence why we do a lot of things with cards. Here, let me do this. So that's a big part of why we do so much with cards, because boy, wouldn't it would be nice to model these trees, right? Like I would love to model these trees and have fully 3D stuff, and that always just looks awesome. But it's just too much, so we look for every opportunity we can to do these tricks. And then the first question was, do we do things for for mobile versus PC? What we do. So animation doesn't really have to change anything. We are cognizant of different formats. So let me see if I can. Let me see. I don't remember if this. We're adjusting some of our tools, so I'm not sure if this. Okay, yeah. This doesn't look. Yeah, that's working. So you can see we have tools here for checking different all the different phone sizes, so we can see what something looks like at any given ratio. So this is a pretty drastic one, 4:3, which I think are old iPads, I think. So you can see here, like, some things are not on screen. Like we're just losing a lot of what's there. So we have to make sure that there's no like really critical information on edges. So we're careful about that stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to do your best, but it can't be perfect for every single one. Where we do a lot of differences are we actually do a high quality level up, and then we do like a somewhat stripped down version. Animation doesn't do much, but the poor VFX artists have to do a tremendous amount of work. So they will make the most amazing looking thing you've ever seen, and if you're on certain PCs and stuff, you'll see that. If you're on older devices, it may automatically pick the low end thing, so they might strip out, maybe it goes down to half the amount of particles or whatever. They have all sorts of tricks, and they have tools to help assess where they need to do that. But no, luckily we're very lucky. Animation just gets to animate and go home at 4 o'clock, and while everybody else stays till midnight. That's
crazy. I didn't actually even consider that you get having to manage all those different aspect ratios. That's crazy.
Yeah, it can be a lot, but I mean, most of the time we just focus on the 16:9 and then just double check that nothing's lost on there. But yeah, so again, this one's the animation on Nocturne's nothing crazy, pretty straightforward stuff. For mostly just tracking marks and make sure stuff like this. It's a pretty quick shot. It gets like 30 frames of animation. But this is a good example, like compared to the previz, he looks over here, and so we ended up having him come over the rocks, and he holds a little bit so that you read him, and then he strikes. And then the other thing I want to mention is for all of these, we're trying to keep it under 5 seconds maximum. That wasn't a hard rule we had for set 1 and 2, but we found that we sort of have this good balance of like, how cool can we make these, but also like, how long do people want to sit around while these are playing? Nobody wants to sit through a 2-hour movie when they're trying to play their game. So we try to keep these at a max of 5 seconds. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. think so. This one came out. I love the set on this one. I just thought this was Kevin Manning did the set. Jan Shu helped them do some texture work stuff. And these guys got rigged up. Yeah, this was a fun one. So yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the work that on the level ups, it's less about, at least for set 3 and set 2 and stuff. It's less about like, oh, this is the hardest, most complicated. It's not as complicated as like certain games can have very complicated setups for like how do the upper body, lower body animations and blending all those things together, and then when the user inputs, like how does that feel? Like we don't have to deal with a lot of that. It's just not that type of game. But where it's like complicated is just like we got to construct these entire scenes, and because you're the animator and the previs artist, so you kind of have to wear 2 different hats, which is different than any game I've ever worked on.
When you showed us, you had previously showed us some of this stuff in our internal community stuff, and I was really shocked by it. Like when I first started animating professionally, I was really shocked at how much ownership I felt just animating for games in general over my individual animations. And then this Legends of Runeterra, like from start to finish, it seems like even on a whole nother level of crazy amount of ownership of the artistry. It seems like a really fantastic experience all from start to finish.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what excites me so much about it is, like I said, there's really not a lot of gameplay animation. We do some spells, but like other than that, it's not like a typical game where like, oh, you're doing a hero moveset, which is really fun. You know what I mean? And that's why I think a lot of animators get into games is you're like, oh my gosh, enemy movesets, hero movesets, that's the juicy stuff. The juicy stuff on this project, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like the amount of control, artistic input and control you have is just so cool. Like getting to set and unfortunately I can't show, there's some things that really cool stuff that's going to come out over the next few months because we got more Targon stuff coming out. You'll get to see like there's just so much, hopefully these moments feel bigger and more exciting with each set because we're sort of the animation team and the art team's feeling out how much space do we have now that we've shipped, what can we do, and there's just working with a great team and a lot of opportunities to be like, hey, what if there's, I don't know, a huge explosion here, and everybody goes, that could be cool, can you make that? And you, sure. And you just, you get so much control over what's in these scenes.
How beholden do you feel to sort of what you might think of as, or what people might think of as quote unquote League style, because it is set in the same universe, right? Do you feel sort of empowered to even explore like dramatically different sort of art styles? Do you think, or do you think there's a world where you'd explore different art styles with cards, or does it all have to kind of still live in the same space in that way?
I think so. Art style wise, I don't know that we'll deviate. I mean, I think we're trying to be like a fleshed out league. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know that we'll deviate, and I think the card art itself represents probably the farthest we would ever go in a maybe a fleshing out of that genre or of that style. So I don't know that we would ever deviate so much or to just do a completely different art style. Now when it comes to animation style, I think for a lot of reasons, because we're close up to these characters, it's not a top down view. We sometimes for those reasons alone, we have to like add and embellish and embiggen some of the movements of what we're doing. And I wish I had examples that really illustrated that, but I can't show or talk about this. But you could imagine there's all sorts of things that where you're like, oh, that's a cool move in League. I know that move. And then you see, like, we have an opportunity to basically be like, imagine what that move looks like with the camera 3 feet in front of the character, So we get to do cool stuff like that. I mean, even this is Lulu's picks. I mean, you never really get to see this very well in game. It's just kind of a little particle that's floating around. but we get to say like, well, what is that little character like? How does that character? What's the attitude like? How does it
The
fly?
sassy hands on the hips.
The sassy that was my art director asked for that. We we didn't do a previs for the scene. This scene was started right before I came back onto the project. So it got set up. Jamie Tatera did a bunch of the like initial setup work and some early animation tests for it. And so they had it set up. So then I just went in and did the final animation. And yeah, I had this little moment. I wanted him to just kind of zip around, and I wanted him to come in front of the camera just to have this little kind of just a little hero shot.
Like a Tinkerbell moment almost.
Yeah. And I think I originally had his hands just kind of like flowing around, just rolling with it. And then it was my art director that was like, what if he was just a little sassy, just a little mischievous? So, which I liked. I thought that was a good note. So yeah, like even in here, there's cool stuff around. So the interesting challenge of this one was getting a good flow, making them weave in and out of the forest, but also it sounds funny, but like doing these little butterfly wings were interesting because I knew I wanted the character to zip around, like, but I was like, you don't really zip around with butterfly wings. You kind of just
chaotically.
It's not a very graceful like flying. So what I ended up like landing on that I thought worked was he zips. He or she, I actually don't know. Chat, you can tell me. I don't know if Pix is a he or a she, or somewhere in between. But it zips, and the wings stay like closed. And then when it kind of does any sort of hover moment, that's when the wings just start flapping, and then they just sort of close up to zip again, and then the wings will flap, and then they close up to zip again. I just did that because it ended up building like these nice shapes. Oh, you can't see the shape. I gotta see the shape. Here, we'll even do that. So you can see where I just tried to close them up and let it support the little zip shape that it's doing. And then when he hovers somewhere, they open up and they do their thing. Yeah. Nice. And we originally didn't have this. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask a question. Is Pix's body a 3D rig, or is it like a 2D puppet?
No, it is. This is fully 3D. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. It's cool because it reads 2D in a way that like looks really cool.
Right. Yeah.
It's for like flat gradient color.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Again, Kevin Manning did the textures for this, if I remember correctly, and he does a really good job of nailing that. Like everything feels integrated, and did a really good job.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most impressive things about a lot of these is that they feel so much like the card art. Like they really feel like moving illustrations in a way that I don't know. There's not a lot of stuff out there that looks quite like it.
Right. Cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, even in your posing, I mean, it's been so long since I've done anything cinematic, but I'm like, wow, it's really posed to camera. It looks great. But like, like this kind of posing, when you rotated that pose, like, it's just really interesting how the wings are sitting off the body, and it's like, oh yeah, that
right.
Like he's a little off center when you sort of rotate him to the side, but it looks great from this view, and I know that's like a really sort of low level animation thing to be like, wow, but I really feel like that nothing takes me back into like nerdy stars in my eyes animator mode than stuff like this. It's just so gorgeous.
Well, even like the hand here, it's like, oh, that's a nice pose, but then you rotate, you're like, oh, geez, the hand's nowhere near right. Yep. Yeah. Well, and what's cool is, again, we can't use real-time lighting, too expensive. So what's cool, though, it's kind of the upside of that is we don't have to worry about, like, sometimes in cinematics, if you do too many cheats like this, you'll get a knockback from your lighter, and they'll be like, hey, you cheated this too far. The shadow, you can see that his hand, like, on the wing, you can see his hand, the shadow from his hand is not on his hips. So all of a sudden these cheats sometimes kind of bite you. But because we don't have real-time lighting, we can do all the cheats we want.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's neat. We do some cool stuff with lighting on this scene. You can see this white, there's like a duplicate mesh here. This was Matt Schwartz did the effects for this, and he came up with this cool idea where we wanted like rim lighting and stuff on this, but how do we do that if we don't have real lighting? So we duplicated the mesh. I rigged it. The duplicated mesh is also running, and he just painted like fake lighting on a second mesh that he just turns on and off. Here, let me see. We'll look at the final. I got it right. Cheer.
Do you
I
have
thought
like
it was a
10 Mayas open? Oh, this is a video.
Nah, it's a video.
It's like the performance on your computer is insane.
You can see, like, as Pix goes
Wow.
by, he's just turning these second meshes on, right? And they're rigged, so they move with it. If I don't know that at the end of the day you could have told, but so I thought that was a pretty clever trick. Yeah, so there's no real lighting in this. This is everything you're seeing is just your effects artists turning things on and off in a really clever way.
Wow, fantastic.
Yep. Very, very cool stuff.
I'm zoning out. Other questions about this? Chat, don't forget to throw your questions in there. I think we're all just sitting here with our jaws dropped. But
yeah, I mean, there was a question. I mean, since you're talking about Lulu, and I don't know how much you were involved in the process of making the whole like Lulu card and everything around her, but there was a question about like how did you guys as a team like sort of reimagine Lulu, particularly as one of like the older champions, and maybe just a more general question, but about like Legends of Runeterra is so much more like high fidelity in a lot of ways,
right?
And what is the process of like reimagining like the level ups and the card art and stuff for champions that may have not had a lot of love?
That's a good question. Well, I can't.
Almost.
Yeah, I can't speak to like. There's a whole design side to this, and that drives everything. I mean, obviously creative is always involved, but design is really like the tip of the spear when it comes to this stuff, and that's probably true for a lot of games, really. They will usually do a lot of the hard work up front of like, who is Lulu and who is Lulu in our game, right? Like, let's answer those questions, and then let's try to come up with a design that feels like Lulu. So that's a lot of work up front, and honestly, that helps us a lot. Once that's done, what we tend to do on the creative side is we early on, and again, these processes are starting to solidify. We're our art team, everybody's learning as we get better as we do each set. So something we do now is we actually have a kickoff meeting with like maybe 5 to 10 like leads, where we'll go through every champion and we'll talk about who they are, all that stuff, what they are in the game, and who they are. Who do we think they are to players? Is there any like things that they do that's just core to them visually, all that stuff, and we try to weave that into what we did for a lot of our work coming up is we did like a day where we all just got in a room and everybody picked one champion and did an animatic in like one day, and then we all showed each other, and we tweak it, and then we take it from there and we give it to storyboard artists, and the whole point is like trying to imbue as much of the champion as we can. And you're right, it's hard because some champions are older, some champions are almost like memes into them. Like Teemo is such a memey champion that you can't just take Teemo at face value. Like, oh, okay, he's this like little bear scout. Like there's so much more to him that you really got to make sure you understand what like players' connections to those characters really are.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to have to consider. For the people who made them first, they're like, sure, a cute thing. And now you're like, I have to create a character that has 10 years of community sentiment wrapped up into it.
Yep.
Well, I remember, Sean, that I know you spent some time back in the day on the champion update team. And I know that it was like, that was the same sort of challenges where it's like, oh my gosh, you changed the walk cycle of my like favorite character. And we're like, we didn't even know you liked that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of, not to derail you, you guys are talking. You have Skylar on the phone right now. That was Skylar, and he's the one. You did the Heimerdinger walk, right?
I did. That was the only champion update that I actually worked on, and that
Skylar popped over to help.
The swag walk.
What's that?
I was like, you got to keep the swag walk.
Yeah, and you were the one that came up with the idea of like, hey, what if you could toggle between walks, right?
Yeah, that was the first time we did like I think like a significant like emote toggle state on the character, which I think they kind of sneak in all over the place now. So
which is awesome, cool. Yeah. So there you go. It came from an animator. You never know. I wanted to spend. I know we only have like 5-10 more minutes, but I just thought it'd be cool to just pop over to look at some pet stuff too, some Guardian stuff. Just to round out the day. Also, I can show you some stuff. But we have another animator on the team, Jessica Yu, and she actually, both her and I worked on this Guardian together, and she did some really awesome stuff. So I wanted to make sure I showed that. Because these are like some of my favorite animations in the game. So I was like, do you mind? Can I show your stuff? So I'm like diverting. I'm literally just jumping over to this because I want to make sure I show this stuff. That's not a very graceful segue, but I want to get it in because I just love this stuff. What's cool about the pet stuff, the Guardian stuff, is that it gives you an idea of how much we are playing with forcing our perspective. Again, here's our camera. Here's where the camera sits when you're playing the game. We don't have a lot of space in between where your eyeballs are and where the playmat is, so we have to fit everything in here. Which means we actually do a lot of tricks. So, for example, in this animation, it looks like the character's kind of coming up at you, making this heart with its tail, and then going back down. And it's not really doing that. It's not. And I'll show you another one where it's really pushed. You can see it's really not. It's not moving that much. So Jessica did a really good job kind of playing with forced perspective on this, and she's really just scaling a lot of stuff. I also just love that animation. This was one where, when we were thinking of what all the animations could be, we had a little brainstorm. And I think it was actually Jessica was like, oh, what if this fox flew up to camera and made a little heart with its tail, reminiscent of Ari? And we were like, oh, that's great. And I remember thinking like, yeah, that's great. And in my head, I was like, I really hope I don't do that animation, because I don't even know how to make that look good. And she knocked this out. So I was really impressed.
Did the fox always have two tails, or was, like, in hearing about that, did the fox get rigged into two tails to make sure that was a thing?
No, in this case, it had already been modeled. And so we knew we had to do multiple tails, just to make sure that it kind of fit with Ari. It just wasn't, because if we just did one, then we're like, it's just a fox. We wanted it to be Ari's fox. So we had two. So we were already lucky. We might have been even influenced by like, oh, he has two tails. What can we do with that? Here, I'll show you again. This is a little bit more, I think that, this is also Jessica's work. But this one really shows the forced perspective. I always love seeing behind the scenes stuff. Like, whoa, they really cheated that. That's so cool. So I always like showing that. Okay, yeah. So this is what you see. This is when you tap on your champion, or sorry, your Guardian, and then it you get a little reward. It'll fly up to the, here we go. So it flies up, gets real close to the camera, and it actually blows you a little heart kiss. And she actually has the VFX in here that she did, but they're not showing up right now. So you're like, oh wow, it's really up close to the camera. How cool! But when you actually see it up close, it's from a different angle. It's quite horrifying, actually. So here, I'll play it from this angle. Everything just. All we're doing, she's just scaling everything. Nothing's really moving, actually. Love that.
Amazing.
Yeah. Very cool stuff.
So effective.
Yep. Very neat. And then I'll show one more, and then maybe that's all we have time for.
Yeah, we could do a little outro. This is a great
little
time.
Something.
Ooh, I feel like this is the talk that had the best pace of the whole day. This feels so comfortable.
Oh,
this
nice.
is fantastic.
Very chill.
Very chill.
It's good.
It's like what working with Sean in real life is like. I got to sit next to him for a year, and it's just like,
that's not true.
Say,
you have poor Skylar.
I've never worked with Sean, but in the very few meetings we've had together, I feel like there's been a really high level of energy. So I'm not sure.
Skylar's being generous. I'm like, every 2 seconds, I'm like, Skylar, something's wrong. Something's broken. Here's a fire. What are we doing about it? Skylar is the most chill animator at Riot, hands down. All right, so this is the last one I'll show. This was the intro for the Fox. For all the previous Guardians, they did these really nice intros. Ron Pucciarelli did a lot of the Guardian animation, and he always had them kind of coming down like the recall beam down. And so him and I talked, and I floated the idea. I wanted to have this Fox come just kind of, since it's a spirit, come from off screen and do some cool little movement. It's playing super slow because the rig it's not an optimized scene yet, but and so we were like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. And what I really wanted was I timed it so what shows up right here, right when he hits this moment, is round 1. So it's like all your board sets, you get your mana, your cards draw, your guardian comes in, and then the round 1 banner appears here. And then just as that's disappearing, they go back to their spots, and right about here you can start to play your cards. So it was like heavily choreographed. But I wanted a little moment where, because for the rest of the game, your guys are just down here, your little characters, and that's about it. Like there's little moments where you can interact with them, but they never are the stars,
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, this is the one moment where the player can't really do anything yet. What if this is our moment to like have them shine, And what's cool is we all liked it, and since then we're starting to do that a little more. But what it also meant was we needed to do what that ended up signing me up for was I had to do an opponent version, because if you just use this one, they're upside down and it looks really weird. So that's the danger of having a lot of creative control, is you're like, wouldn't it be cool? And everybody's like, yeah, but you just signed up for a lot of extra work. So, but it was fun. It came out good.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, amazing
Very
stuff.
cool.
Thank
I want
you.
to say one last thing.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Lana, because you guys have no idea how much Lana put into this, how much hard work, and I'm sure everybody else already thanked you, but Lana put in a tremendous amount of hard work for today. So I just want to spend 10 seconds to say thank you for doing this.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Blushing now. Well, we do have a cool 5 minutes before the next sesh. I think we can either just chill here, or you can answer one more question, like really maximize this time. The last question I sort of saw that could be interesting to hear from you. That's most of them were like pretty high level. You answered, we sort of hit most of them in general, but the one that I saw that I guess would just be, do you have any tips for animating in Maya? There's a student who's working in Maya this semester in a class, but they are a 2D traditional animator. So if you're doing kind of a hybrid of these things, what are your tips?
Ooh, tips for animating in Maya. That's coming from 2D. I know, Skylar, you came from 2D, or at least you were trained. I had a little training in 2D, but I mean, the short answer is that there's a lot of, it's a lot of work to learn how to animate in 3D, and it definitely doesn't feel like 2D. Skylar, you go ahead. You look like you were about to say something.
No, I was going to kind of just say quickly that, coming from a 2D background, like I was trained as a 2D animator and then switched to 3D. I think the best advice I could give is to just like think about it like a tool. And I'm not sure whether you're asking about doing 2D in Maya versus or what, but Maya is not a great tool for doing 2D animation.
Right. Go to
so
Blender.
I wouldn't highly recommend that unless you're doing some sort of like 2.5D kind of thing, like what Sean's doing, in which case he's definitely the expert at that. But yeah, like it's just another tool. When I was learning 3D animation, you have to learn the software, but most of the rules and stuff that you learn in 2D still apply. So.
And also, I think like using 2D, you can still inform the work that you're going to do in 3D.
Absolutely.
By drawing it out. The animatics, sure, they're all comped together, but those are all 2D pictures. Nigel Style earlier, as part of the League of Legends session, showed off like 7 minutes of just 2D animation that he drew in prep for his 3D work. So you don't have to say, I'm moving on from 2D, I'm doing all 3D now.
Right.
Like 2D is a super solid blocking pass. It's a great way to quickly communicate ideas. Like you can definitely attach those things together in a way that should hopefully inform one another.
That's awesome.
Well, I know that Sean, you did a lot of cool stuff that I think you have some of these old tests up on your Vimeo page or something of going the other way, which is like making 3D stuff look super 2D.
That was back
cool, so.
Here. I'll even pull that up. I see one more question that they've asked 3 times, so I'm going to make sure I answer it. It's funny because this was neat 10,000 years ago when I made it, but now that Blender exists, this isn't so neat anymore. where is it? Do I have the final up? Yeah, this was a 3D test, and I rendered all the frames and then put like a filter over it and painted the shadows. Why is it geeking out on me here? But yeah, I don't know why it's like wobbling. But so this is actually 3D. It's just like a bunch of work to make it look 2D. But now that Blender exists, it's like that's not that impressive anymore. I want to answer Luis 9000.
The hours you put into it are impressive.
That's right. Yeah. Do you guys have storyboard artists in house? Just seeing if you're rat animator. We don't have anybody, at least not on my team, and I don't think any of the game teams do. We don't have any like storyboard artists. We co-opt concept artists, and they're just a tremendously talented group of people, so they also know how to do storyboards. Now I don't know. I don't know every team at Riot. It's possible there are, but I don't know of any.
Yeah. So in the case of does it fall under rat animators? I haven't met a storyboard artist who came to hang out at the Rat Nest with us yet.
Yeah. Well,
if you're listening, join us.
It's time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Sean Coleman, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
I think Pale Blue Sean is my Twitter handle. Yeah. So you can friend me there, and don't hesitate to just ping me and ask questions. I love this stuff, so I'll talk about this all day long.
Great. Well, thanks also to Skylar for helping moderate and hang out with us. We are going to be back shortly with our last session of the day. We're very excited. Do you have questions that weren't answered? It's an AMA. That's all we're going to do. So please hang out with us. We'll see you in a couple minutes.